Stronger.
Imagine a world without choices.
Stronger.
Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. Tonight we have a treat. Wow, we have a treat for you tonight. We're going to be speaking with Mr. Winston Wright, who is the Member of Parliament candidate for Eastern Westmoreland, and he's also the councillor candidate for the Betheltown division in Westmoreland. So tonight we're going to get a chance to become more acquainted with Mr. Wright and to hear what he thinks about the vision, mission, and values of the UIC. And also we're going to touch on the 10-point plan as well. You're going to be able to call in tonight to speak with us. We have a call-in number that will be showing on your screen momentarily. And you are free to call in. So get your family and your friends lined up and tell everybody this is the chance for them to come on and ask Mr. Wright any question they may have about his candidacy and about the UIC in general. I see lots of people tuning in so far from around the world. Let me welcome you, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or any of those different social media platforms. We're very happy to have you, and we're looking forward to engaging with you and the candidate tonight. We're doing a series called Meet the Candidates. We're rolling out each of our candidates over the next few weeks. Last week, I think, or this week, Sunday, you met Dr. Coretta Brown Johnson, who is our candidate over in East Rural St. Andrew. And tonight you're going to be meeting Mr. Winston Wright, who's our candidate for Eastern Westmoreland, as well as the Betheltown division. As you know, the UIC is Jamaica's official third registered political party. It means that we're the first post-colonial party to be registered under the new laws that came into effect around 2017. You might recall, if you were following, that the two colonial parties changed the rules. Prior to 2018, any group could call themselves a political party and simply, run for office as such. And the two colonial parties had a field day doing whatever they wanted to do, but then they decided to bring in strict regulations to regulate political parties and make it harder for third parties to exist. Well, the UIC challenged those rules in 2019 after spending 2018 working vigorously to get ourselves in a position to challenge them. And then we did, and we fought with the ECJ for almost a year, from February of 2019 until they finally acquiesced and gave us the registration as Jamaica's official third party on December 2nd, 2019. As you know, we did not contest the 2020 elections because we could not understand why we should stay home because the Prime Minister says so, and then we should come out to vote when he says so, even though the conditions that caused us to be forced home was the same on the election cycle. In any event, we're here now and we're ready, and we're going to be contesting elections as best as we can and as best as you allow us to. As you know, we depend on you for funding. Without your funding, we cannot effectively contest any elections. So tonight we're going to hear from one of our candidates. So please join me in welcoming on stage. Oh, before that, big up cool guy, Craig McKenzie, Carol Spence, Carvel Burrell. Good to see you all on. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. One perfect love to you as well. And happy Thursday to all Uniters, wherever you are. So let me welcome now Mr. Winston Wright. Good evening and welcome, Mr. Wright.
Sir Founder, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing quite fine. Thank you very much. It was a pretty hectic day for me. I rushed home to get on this live with you. after living some heavy bags and packing some boxes and running up and down to get some shipments off because, believe it or not, since my retirement from the UIC, our business has picked up tremendously on the B Suite side of things. And so I have been actively engaged in helping Mrs. Patterson and the team to get our packages out. I hope you order yours for Christmas.
No, not yet, but I'm coming your way, so I'll pick that up then because my wife is a fan.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, as you know, all UIC members, donors, and supporters get discount. So you're in for, tell her she's in for a treat. Not you. We'll give her the discount.
Understood. But while we talk about B Suite, and
Hmm.
I know the other Uniteds are getting out there for the holiday with their business. I have
Yes.
to go to that post the other day that I couldn't help but commenting on
Hmm.
because they saw the B Suite ad. Well, one person and
Hmm.
wanted to make a mountain out of that molehill or that pimple. When if they were watching this live the week before, they would have heard you encouraging the other Uniteds and stating that our policy is to hear the business of Uniteds. Right? And that was on a live. So, I had to point that out that that's our policy from day one to support all Uniteds in their endeavor. So I see you're frozen. Can the audience just give me a mic check to let me know they are hearing me while the president is out, whether it's me or him? Well, internet seems to give trouble when the OIC is around.
All
Right.
right.
So can the audience hear me?
I can hear you, and it looked like I'm back with you now. Can you hear me?
Yes. I was just asking the audience if they're hearing me.
Yeah.
Right. So I couldn't help but commenting and sharing with persons that the UIC stated policy is to help to expose the business of uniters because we're in the business of uplifting people. So we want to help our members in our community. So the UIC is a community and our members get the help to get exposure. And you have done a great job with mentoring persons as well as having persons benefit from the UIC's events in terms of getting exposure for what they have to offer. And that is a stated policy that has been a part of the UIC and will continue to be a part of the UIC. So, I mean, you're the one who uses it the most because you understand it. You're the unite to shy away from it from time to time. But just to say it is there for all.
Yeah, man. And the UIC has always been a very different political movement. First of all, we're a political party only because we have to call ourselves a party per se to participate in the process, the colonial political process. But we're a movement first. And our commitment as a movement is to help all Jamaicans to understand the importance of entrepreneurship, to understand the importance of taking personal responsibility for our own economic development, and for us to engage in group economics, to work with each other, to support each other. So we're not going to hide and shy away and hide and pretend as if we're not, doing business for ourselves. The colonial politicians, what they do, they create a fake facade as if there's something for free out there. So they make Jamaicans believe, for example, that the political process is for free and all you have to do is turn up and vote. That's a mind numbing effect, and it causes you to disassociate yourself from the real issue of getting involved in your country fully and participating fully. If you don't, somebody else is going to fund the political parties, for example. And so while they're pretending to work for you, they're working for a special interest group. And that special interest group are those who run big businesses. For example, if you wanted to buy today a bag of sugar, remember in the old days you used to have shops and a person buy a bag of sugar and bag out the sugar in £1 and £2 and £3 and sell it back because they're selling oftentimes in a depressed community where people can't, buy big or whatever. Did you know that the laws that we have today have cut all of that out, even though some might be doing it illegally? It is now illegal. So the way it works now, only the big man can buy the bag and the big man get it in the nice packaging and whatever. and then him sell it back to you. But they won't allow the small man to come and buy the bag of sugar and bag it out. They're doing the same thing right now in the Airbnb industry, where they're finding regulations to see if they can effectively wipe out the ordinary citizen being able to get involved in offering a part of their home for tourist opportunities. And say, no, let's concentrate that in the hands of those who have the big hotels and all inclusive, which is contrary to UIC policy. Our policy is to bring tourism to the community level, which is to support and allow all kind of Airbnb and any other form of ingenious ways that the Jamaican might want to offer the service, as long as they're not engaged in force or fraud and they're not, harassing anybody. But the government's approach from the beginning of time to now, the 80 years of these two parties, is always to find ways to squeeze out the small man and concentrate wealth and power in the hands of a few. Is that your observation as well, Mr. Wright?
Very much so. First, let me say good evening to Mr. Ross. Thanks for joining us and the others joining. Now, I'm in Montego Bay, so let's look at the history of Montego Bay. Montego Bay is a storied tourist town where the rich and famous have been staying here forever since. But if you look at the development of the city, right, you will see lovely hotels and the associated big housing developments for the middle and upper class. And the garrisons keep growing. Why? Because these hotels need employees, but these employees earn minimum wage. So these big hotel developments, that they collect their revenues out of state, as in out of Jamaica. So therefore, there's no profit tax, there's no corporate tax. All they're contributing to the economy is the minimum wage that they pay their employees and the PAYE that they get from that, which doesn't make it a livable wage. Mm-hmm. So we're stuck with this development that is sometimes deleterious on the environment, that shares none of its resources with the country. But you see a tourism minister that hobnobs at these properties and they're declared the best tourism product, even though there's raw sewage running on the streets of Montego Bay. Mm-hmm. Right? Even though there's raw sewage running on the streets of the tourist strip. And they get lauded for being the best at, because they keep the money in the pockets of these special interest groups. Mm-hmm. Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, which is just an extension of the PSOJ. And then they enslave our workers in poultry conditions. So
and then they use the profits from that to buy their votes at election time.
Exactly.
So those profits come back as donation. Some of that profit comes back as donation to the parties. The 500 million they're going to get this year for campaigning, and they're going to use that now to go and buy back the people who they have kept ignorant, who they have caused to leave school in a marginalized way, having less competences than they need to, and living hand to mouth and worshiping the politician who drive through once or twice every 4 to 5 years and say, we are your gods, we are your lords, worship us, and yes, we're going to drop you a few crumbs every now and again, and you vote for us, and the thing goes on. But Mr. Wright, I'm going to cut you, because let's go back to the beginning and begin our formal interview process, eh? So we kind of got sidetracked. We're talking about honey, and we're talking about Airbnb, and we're talking about the whole entrepreneurship of the UIC. But I want to talk to you about you tonight. I'm going to begin by asking you, well, first of all, let me welcome you, Mr. Wright, officially, properly, to the UIC Liberty TV, to which you're no stranger. You've been here a number of times, but I think this is probably one of, if not the first time, we're going to have a formal sit-down interview with you.
Yes.
So we're going to do that now. And I want to thank you for agreeing to do this interview live, to introduce yourself to the people of Jamaica, so that they may understand what does it mean to have Mr. Winston Wright as Member of Parliament for Eastern Westmoreland, or to have him as a councillor for Bethel Town. And so the UIC welcomes you, Liberty TV welcomes you, and we look forward to having that chat with you now. So let's begin with, who is Winston Wright? Give us a little insight into your family background, your education, your vocational training and history. Tell us how all of that prepared you to be a candidate today for the UIC and to be able to represent the people in your constituency. Who is Winston Wright? Family, education, vocation. Tell us.
Uh, Thank you for having me on, sir. Winston Wright is a 46-year-old professional. I'm currently employed as a facility manager in Montego Bay. That's just simply a fancy talk for a guy that maintains the facility, building, and its supporting infrastructure. My bread and butter, or my passion, or my long term vocation was in aviation, where I spent about 27 years in total in aviation. I started working at 18 as an aviation firefighter, and through that process of continuing education and hard work, I moved up the ranks to management, as officer in the service, then management in airport operations. When I was retrenched from airport operations, I went to airline operations, where I worked for one of the local carriers. Trying not to use brand names, one of the local carriers for a number of years. I left there and went to one of our Caribbean neighbors, where I managed their airport and ground handling operations for about 5 years. Um, there, I helped them develop their airport program, their ground handling program, meet certain regulatory requirements, and worked with major carriers to get them into that destination, which is now a thriving place. And I left there and came back home. I already had a new contract lined up. As a matter of fact, it was my delay in signing because I thought that I'd focus on a state visit rather than signing a contract. That's the kind of person I am. So when my kids called me and told me to come back home to Jamaica because our community was racked with violence, I remember my sister calling me one day while I'm at work and telling me that she's laying down on the floor. She was helping my son get ready for school, but there's just gunshots firing all over the place.
Which community was
In
that?
Betheltown,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we went through an episode of that, and you know, when my kids told me to come home, I packed it up and came home. And I remember when I told the Prime Minister that I'm going to resign and go back home, he was on the way to the world, to the United Nations.
Mhm.
And he told me, "No, brother Winston, you can't leave." I said, "Listen, I have to go." He said, "When I come back, we'll talk." And, you know, that conversation, I just reiterated that I needed to be home with the family. I actually gave them 2 months' notice and helped them transition to new management during that period, and then headed back to Jamaica. And persons were very critical, including friends that I exposed to opportunities down there, who left Jamaica and came there, and believe it or not, well, I know you'll believe, found professional and financial success there. They were like
And where was this? Where was this?
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
St. Vincent. Okay. Is that the
Yeah.
only Caribbean island that you have been to?
No, I've been to Grenada, Barbados, St. Lucia, quite a few of them.
And
Short term stays there. St. Vincent was the longest stay away from home. I've been to the US, Canada. I've not been to England because I'm not a fan of flying, and a 9 hour flight is quite intimidating to me. You can
yeah.
imagine, as an aviation firefighter for some 20 odd years, I would be weary of that. But let me not impose my prejudice on our viewers.
But stick a pin. Based on your, travels around the Caribbean, would you say the Jamaican people are very similar with the other Caribbean nationals, or are we distinct in any significant way from, say, Barbados, St. Vincent, and so on?
Here's my observation: Jamaicans are loved wherever we go, but we don't love ourselves.
Hmm.
I met a group of Jamaicans on my sojourn, and we became close, and we realized that we hung out together, we supported each other because we all miss home, and
Hmm.
we took care of each other being away. But we don't see that here at home. And the people who we come across, they appreciate our professionalism. They love our accent, and they even love our cooking even more.
Hmm.
So we were appreciated in these places where we go throughout the world. But here at home, we don't appreciate each other. Now, in the Caribbean, our culture is very similar. We share a common history and a common genetic ancestry. And that is evident, especially in the way we relate to each other wherever we meet up. And of course, now when you look below the surface, you'll realize that there is a stronger connection. So, for example, in St. Vincent, the language, while the accent is different, the language is very similar because of that history. And of course, the look, as in the physical of the person, is very similar. And our mannerisms are exactly the same. So it is a microcosm of a broader African ancestry.
I asked the
So
question because, I have not been to a lot of the Caribbean countries. I've been to Cuba, which was quite, and, Cuba is a little bit different because they're mostly, Hispanics, really. You still have, a lot of blacks there and so on, but it's largely driven from the South American continent and the Spanish influence over Cuba.
right,
But I have been to Africa a number of times, particularly to Ghana, and I found that the people there are so very Jamaican. I always tell my friends that when they go to Ghana, you find 30 million Jamaicans there. Here at home we're about 3 million, right? But you go to Ghana, you find 30 million Jamaicans because they're all Jamaicans in terms of their mannerism, even though there are cultural differences because we in Jamaica have lost some of our African heritage and African,
correct.
the fullness of it, while they still retain. They're impacted as well because colonialism has affected all of Africa, but they have been able to hold on to a lot more of what it means to be African. And what impresses me is that we here in Jamaica, regardless of all that we have been through, deep in us remains the African essence. And so I'm quite impressed by that. But let's move on. I want to kind of get from you, what are the competences that your past experience have given you to be able to be an effective representative of the people? And I ask that because many times we have been chided in the UIC for where are your candidates? And we have had, you know, more, probably over 150 applications from candidates. And it saddens me to know that even though you might have so many persons who have raised their hands, they may not have what it really takes to represent people, because it's not just to be a candidate. You have to have certain competences, certain abilities to be able to represent. If you can't represent yourself, for example, I don't see how you can represent somebody else. So for example, if you're a candidate and you can't write properly, you can't reason properly, you can't analyze properly, you can't explain properly, you can't advocate properly, how are you going to represent? So tell me what kind of competences you have as a result of your past experiences that have prepared you to be an effective representative of the people of Westmoreland or the people of Betheltown.
Thank you for that question. I was one of those youngsters who were fortunate enough to have strong mentors. And from communication, both technical communication and in aviation communication to normal communication, report writing, all of that was taught to me at an early age. So communication is one of my strong suits. I've also had experience in adult learning, if you want to call it, professional development, business administration. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of accounting, so I only did it to pass that in college. Right? Uh, CFD, contract negotiations. I have a diploma in HR. Uh, so infrastructure management, fleet maintenance. It's a lot.
So
But
basically, if you were elected as a councilman, a councillor, or as an MP, and an issue comes up, let's say we're looking at infrastructure, we're looking at roadworks, you would be able to ask appropriate questions of any contractor or company. Let's say we had to have a special hearing where we're looking into, road construction practices, longevity of these roads, standards, competing bids, competing technology, have the kind of background to be able to assess and evaluate what is being proposed. You wouldn't just be a yes minister or a lackey where somebody else, maybe let's say somebody behind your campaign who has funded you, just say, yeah man, push that through. and you just vote to put it through, you would be in a position to be able to ask the appropriate questions, evaluate competing opportunities, identify the risks involved, look at mitigating factors that may affect the environment, the local commercial interests, impact on school growth in terms of population density, and all of that. You'd be able to factor those things in making a decision. Am I correct?
Absolutely correct. Macro and microeconomics are part of my schooling. And in terms of infrastructure, as you know, an airport is an airport is basically a microcosm of a city, and there's a massive amount of infrastructure to maintain. And one of the things you do working in all levels of an airport operations is that you learn those things, and not just in passing, but you have to be schooled in it. So, for example, there are documentation in aviation that they refer to as annexes that gives very technical details as to how infrastructure should be built and maintained. So you have to be versed in those, not again, not just in passing, but know the ins and outs of it, the nitty gritty, as we would say. So in terms of a piece of infrastructure, definitely we'll know how that is supposed to be built and maintained.
So let me ask
So
you a question. We have mostly asphalted roads in Jamaica. Uh, are you aware? You might not know this, but you may know it as well. How long should a well planned, well designed, asphalted road last on ordinary traffic? In a country of our climate and population size, what was the lifespan? And you don't have to know this, but because I'm going to tell you, I know it as well. But do you think that our current roads are standing up to the basic expectations for asphalted roads in a country like
and so
Jamaica?
I don't have the current lifespan figure on the top of my head. I haven't done aviation in a while. But
Yeah.
what I can tell you is that the conditions that are created when we build a piece of road infrastructure is one that sets it up to fail. And because there are several steps that are missing in that process that have the life of that piece of pavement. And we'll get into that in a different program. But what I like to tell people is that an asphaltic road deteriorates based on the weather action on top and the weather action below. And so that gives you an idea of where that
Absolutely.
conversation will go.
But when I did my research, a well-designed asphalted road should last you about 13 years when done well. Of course, you'd have to do minor repairs throughout to ensure you maintain the longevity. Of course, if you leave something unattended for a long time, like let's say you have a small, crack, and you don't address it, of course, it's going to create, as you said before, problems underneath, and the continued problem on the top will eventually cause very quick erosion. And we've seen that in Jamaica. But our topic is not roads, but it's very important for us to have sensible and sane representatives, people who can think. People with a science background is useful, financial background is useful, psychological background, like Dr. Corrector, is useful. But let me ask you, what attracted you to the UIC though? I mean, you could have done anything. What is it that attracted you to this movement?
But my attraction to the UIC has been to my detriment. And again, we won't get into that right now. Uh, so I came back to Jamaica in 2019, late 2019. And, being back home, you want a month to reacclimatize. And believe it or not, a really close friend of mine that I also encouraged to move to the islands to participate in that project was there. And she supported the JLP, not in a strong way. She's not partisan, but somebody who liked their policy. And she said, listen, Jamaica is running better now because these guys are in power. So when you go back there, you'll have no problem starting your business. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea because I had a few ideas. I came out to Jamaica, a month of acclimatization. I said, okay, let me get out there. I realized that my wife ran me out of the house because she's tired of seeing it. Go find something to do. So I started pursuing my business idea. The first one was shipping because I had great contacts from down in the islands, and I saw what their agricultural market, export market looked like, even though it's small. And I'm thinking Jamaica with, more connectivity, more variety, can do much better. So I'm now looking to get into that, and I started the process. And of course, being involved in aviation, I in Jamaica before going there, I knew people and I know how the logistics work. I know the kind of certification, etc., that I wanted. And the first thing I came back and I reached out to Jampro, and nobody answered their phone because, of course, you have to register to be a part of Brand Jamaica. So I said, okay, all right, I know where the office is next to the airport. Let me drive there. I drive there, no office. The security guard told me that no man, it's in town. So I drove back in town, no office. And after 2 weeks of searching, I found the office. Heard of the office. It's located all the way out on the Rose Hall Strip, where a little man can't take a taxi to get there, next to the conference center, I was told. To this day, I have not gone to find out because I found it so much of an affront. Anyway, I said, all right, let me move to the next idea. It should be simpler. And of course, I moved to the next idea, and the Scientific Council of Jamaica, Research Council of Jamaica shut me down. Right? I reached out to a vendor and I said, listen, you can't buy what you want in quantity. And these are some precursor chemicals that I need. You need to buy it by the pallet load. Also, you need to hire a chemist that is a university graduate. Of course, if somebody spending 5 years studying chemistry in university, my startup won't be able to afford them. And it went like that with all my ideas. Until eventually I had to go find a job. I had to go back to a 9 to 5 because all the processes, when I pull down the Jampro paperwork that I'll need, they've changed all the requirements. Because I started researching this business before I left Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
It changed all the requirements. So I now need to do these massive pieces of infrastructure work to get into the business. And this is before I sell my first product. Now,
In other words,
capitalization of any business is a great thing. And you need to know your capitalization as to how you'll fund your business for a particular period. And even though I had that worked out, when I saw what was required, I would have sucked out all the money that I had.
is it safe to say? Is it safe to say, Mr. Wright, that the economic environment in Jamaica is designed to accommodate big business and big business only? If you're a small business, they like to see you very poor and marginalized. So the leap from being micro to small to medium to large, it's a massive leap, and that's structurally designed. So the system is structurally designed to keep out as many people as possible from being able to be a part of the entrepreneurial success in the country. 1 second. Good evening and welcome to UIC Liberty TV. Who am I speaking with?
Ken.
Hello, Ken. How are you?
Not bad, sir.
Wonderful. What can we do for you tonight? What do you want to ask?
Would like to ask you if you have a candidate for Southwest Citizen.
All right. So tonight's discussion though is about Mr. Wright, but for your question, the answer is no. We don't have a candidate there yet. But do you or someone you know would like to step up to the plate?
Well, I couldn't say yes, no.
Mm-hmm. But do you know someone in your community who might be interested, or can you do a search and see? Because what we like to do, we like to have persons come out of the community and say they want to represent, their fellow community members or constituency members. So we don't do like the other parties where we find somebody and just put them in your community. We want the leadership to come from within the community. So we invite and encourage persons in every constituency. And it doesn't have to be one. We can have 2 or 3 persons come forward. We have an internal debate, if you will, and, review their competencies and have the membership in that community help us to decide who they would like to be their representative if we have enough persons involved. So tell me about your community. What are some of the major issues there? What are some of the major issues you have in your community?
That was what I wanted also to ask you from a good while now.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the number on YouTube.
Okay.
My YouTube is not working for me. It's just been around and nothing.
Okay, I understand. You say your name is Ken, right?
Yeah.
And which constituency again you were interested in?
Southwest.
Southwest.
Yeah.
Southwest what?
St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth. Okay.
Not too far from you, man.
I know, yes. We did have a candidate down there once, but she eventually got a little, like many people, it's very hard to be a candidate if you don't have the financial support. So sometimes people get discouraged. So that's why we ask persons to really get involved and donate so we can help our candidates to have a meaningful impact in their community. But thank you, Ken. We will, keep in touch, and if you hear of somebody, let us know. Okay?
Yeah, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right. Back to you, Mr. Wright. We're talking about, why you joined the UIC, and we kind of segued a bit into the fact that the economy is designed to push big business and stifle small business, and you have experienced that in your own attempt.
Oh, yes, very, very much so. And it continues to this day. You mentioned one example earlier, but as you said, back to the topic on hand. So that angered me that I wasn't able to do what I wanted for my family, because my 3 kids are everything to me. And if I gave up a high-paying job overseas to come back to Jamaica, you must understand how much they mean to me. And I decided to go back to a 9 to 5, and I did that because, of course, the kids needed care, not just emotional care, but physical care. So I started my 9 to 5, and while I sat in my office, I rule, and as Dr. Carter Broad Johnson like to say, I ruminated on what has happened, and it angered me to the point where I started searching, and I would research every day to see what is out there, if there's a new movement, something. And one day I was listening to the news and on the way to work on my car radio, and they mentioned Jamaica's 3rd registered political party, that Jamaica's third party has just been registered. And I was like, what? Okay, that's nice. So I Googled them. Nothing came up. I Googled Jamaica's 3rd registered political party, and it wasn't them that came up. It was the UIC, and I'm like, what? There's a party before them? So the radio just lied. And I'm like, okay. So I went on the website and I started reading, and I was drawn into that document. I must confess this, that entire day, I didn't work much. I spent it reading the manifesto and all the other documents that were there. And I sent an email, and throughout the day, there was no reply. So the next morning I called and you answered. And that's where the conversation started.
Wow. So you were drawn to the UIC because of our principles, our vision, our mission, our values,
Absolutely.
our manifesto, our 10-point plan. So those things kind of captivated.
No, the 10-point plan wasn't around then. Well, it wasn't articulated then. It's after I joined, and you and I and others were working together, that came out.
Right. Wonderful. So basically, you had an intellectual encounter that then stirred you emotionally to say, I want to engage, I want to be a part of this, which leads into my next question, which is, why did you choose to offer yourself as a UIC MP candidate for Eastern Westmoreland and for Betheltown? Well, let's answer that first. Why did you choose then? It's good and well that you have joined the movement and that you have volunteered and that you have donated and you pay your membership. That's good. But to take the next step to being a candidate, can be quite a big step. I know, even in my home, you don't just become a candidate in a movement without your wife and the kids and the uncle and aunts and everybody getting involved, and your own mental analysis, dealing with your job, your finances. What led you to say, I want to be a candidate, not just a member? I want to stand up and represent the people of Eastern Westmoreland and Betheltown.
Now, before the UIC, I've always said that the political system in Jamaica needs to get to a place where the people recognizes that they can stand up and offer themselves in the community as representatives, because the law gives them the right. The Representation of the People's Act gives each of us the right to represent our community. And I've always said that we as community members need to start looking around our communities and identify that teacher, that nurse, that doctor, even that police officer who has the community's best interest at heart, and say, hey, there is 1,000 of us here and 800 of us have decided that we want you to represent us and we will support your candidacy. I've always said that, even before I left Jamaica, even before the UIC. And when I came back and I realized that the UIC is here and nobody in my community is acknowledging the existence of the UIC and supporting the values, the vision, and the mission of the UIC, I was appalled because the community considered itself a PNP community. You know, my dad, and even to this day, people are like, "Well, you feel say UIC when your father was a stalwart," and you know, and a lot of people would say that to me when I meet them, especially those who know my family. And when the time came around and I realized that that was happening, I thought about it and I said, I'll do this, but let me talk to the family. My mom definitely does not agree, but she now supports. My wife totally doesn't support it, but she tolerates me and it. But my biggest cheerleaders are my kids, my three kids. They are my biggest
I met
cheerleaders.
them. I remember in the early years when you just joined and I met your children. They were like so excited about the UIC. It was amazing.
Yeah,
And
and their excitement isn't about politics, but
right.
see my passion and here because I tell them what I'm doing is for you. You don't have a famous last name. You're not from the elitist group, or I'm not from the elitist group. So I'm leveling the playing field so you can have the opportunity, and all the other kids around us in our community will have that opportunity with the UIC leveling the playing field and opening the economy to everyone to participate.
Mhm. I'm amazed. I think if Jamaicans actually understood, we know they can't hear because we've been blocked by the media and so on. But I believe if the Jamaican people ever gets the opportunity, the majority, to hear the UIC message, it is game over, Mr. Wright. Game over
Exactly.
for the exit. It's just that the people don't know and hear what we're offering. Even candidates, if people really care about their country and about their future and their children's future, the message, the vision, the mission of the UIC, what we stand for, the manifesto, anybody who wants a great Jamaica would latch on to that and work for it. But that's another story. I want to ask you another question now. Um, why didn't you join one of the two well-established colonial parties and seek to run for office under their umbrella? Because it's people like you that they love to grab onto. People, when some of us come back from foreign who went away and work elsewhere, we might come back with 2 shillings initially until they drain it from us. um, they normally like to grab those people and say, come on, if you can talk and if you can look good in front of the camera, if you can, be some kind of representative. And the funny thing I've always noticed in Jamaican politics, if you run as an independent, you'll run in a community, in a constituency, and you're lucky if you get 30 or 50 votes, okay? If you run as an independent. The moment you join one of the other two parties, you instantly move from the 30 or 50 into the thousands. Instantly. Even if they don't know you. All they know is that I'm up on the green side and you vote green, or I'm up on the R. So it's not you and the content of your character they're looking at. They're not assessing you, the person. That might come in as a subsequent deciding factor within the party itself if they're having their own runoff elections. But
Right.
generally speaking, once you are like in my community, when I moved here in Northeast St. Elizabeth 12 years ago, the PNP candidate that was the MP at the time, he won with 9,000 votes. 9,000 votes compared to the GLP's about 5,000, 6,000 somewhere there. After him, the next candidate, which was not well liked, but he ended up with 7,000 votes. And then the one after him got about 6,000 votes or so. What I've observed in all of this though is that there's a base amount of vote you get just because you're representing the party. It has
Yeah.
nothing at all to do with your competences, nothing at all to do with what you bring to the table, your character or anything. It's just that. So it's very difficult for independents to win. And I'll add this before I bring you back in. People don't understand that you do not win elections in Jamaica simply by raising your hand, putting your name on the ballot, and then going around and saying some nice words or even wonderful words or whatever, it's because you have a machinery behind you that you're going to win. The machinery includes having a team of persons in all of the polling divisions. People who are going to watch the ballot box, people who are going to bring your people to the polling station to vote. So you need transportation, you need lunch for all of your volunteers, you need communication equipment and communication data. You need to pay people to carry out roles. It's even if it's just one-time payments for the day or a week or a series of weeks. And so if you cannot pay for this team to support you, many of them may be volunteers, outright volunteers, but many of these volunteers are also people who are hungry. When they come and volunteer for you, they're giving up the time where they're going to search for bread somewhere. You understand? So you have to be able to feed them and so on. So it's a very, very serious operation. And sometimes I think people on the outside looking on, they think it's just by you getting up and running off your mouth and even running up and down. And there are many persons who run off their mouths and run up and down, but they don't run for office because they know better. They know if to run for office, they know they're going to lose if they don't have the ability to finance a ground operation. What are your thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I was ignorant to that fact until I started in your tutelage. And for the past 2+ years, I've been moving around in the community, introducing myself to the people and getting to know people in different spheres. And it is very, very taxing. And I've been doing it without resources because the UIC doesn't have the resources because we're still waiting on people to wake up to the reality that we need to own our own movement. So, and in moving around and talking to the people, I realized that they still believe that the party should be giving or that the party has it all and should come to them. People are very shy if they're not being paid to volunteer or to participate in even the rudimentary parts of the process. When we look at more mature democracies, we realize that persons are very engaged, and when they're true believers, they volunteer their time to be a part of the process so they can advance their cause. Here we just wait on the cause to happen to us. And that has to change. We need to get to that point of maturity where we realize that the special interest groups are winning. They have always been winning. And we need to reverse that to create a government that truly represents the people, to control the process in a way. And when I say control, I don't mean take charge of it and hold it, but to guide it, to make sure the process works for the people. And until we understand that fully, we're always going to be left behind. And
Absolutely.
to educate the persons to that as a candidate is a very difficult thing.
Yeah, because for you to education requires resources. You can't educate children without schools and teachers. And you don't have teachers and schools without money paying for teachers and schools and for supplies. The same thing for politics. If we're going to educate the Jamaican people, somebody has to fund it. Now, you and I have reached into our pockets and taken what we can out of our families' resources to help the cause. Now, the truth is, it's amazing. If only a few hundred of us did that, we create the snowball effect and lead the rest of the nation. I've said this for a long time. If 1,000 persons within the diaspora gave $25 a month US on average, and if 1,000 Jamaican gave their dues, just paying your membership dues alone, of 1,000 Jamaican dollars a month, just those two numbers, 1,000 in foreign, 1,000 at home, we would be able to educate and empower the people very, very quickly to do what needs to be done. But let's move on to my next question. What is the vision of the UIC and why does it resonate with you?
So the vision of the UIC is to create a Jamaica that brings out the best in her people. And it resonates with me because we're at a point in our history where the plantocracy is still alive. The systems that are supposed to be developing us and then uplifting us as a people and a nation are stuck in an ancient reality that was stemmed on a supremacist ideology. And even though we claim to have gotten rid of that, it is still very apparent to those who will look. I see it every day and in every way. When I and if I can again digress, I remember as an airport manager when I would go to an establishment, especially in my uniform, I would be hollowed, and because of that, and my wife always tell me that I'm rebellious because of that I would not wear my uniform to places I'm going. I'd go in another shirt, with my shirt out and I'd walk in. And because of that, I tried to be friends with the common man, the man on the ground, the security officer, the janitor, and not friends with another manager who I can network with. And all of that was to my detriment. But it's a principle I wanted to stop by to show solidarity with the man out there that goes through it every day. So when the UIC proposed that, when I came across that, I realized that this is what I've been waiting for. Someone, a group who is brave enough to challenge the status quo, to put it out there that, listen, we are still a segregated society, believe it or not, and we want to change that in a meaningful way.
It's amazing you say that, because when people hear of segregation, they're thinking maybe of the old time where you go and you see a thing that says white only, blacks only, or colored or whatever. The colonial powers are far more sophisticated than that. They now have, and it's not black or white anymore. It's rich or poor. you
True.
know, it's not about your color anymore. The truth is, it was never about your color, but they used that as a controlling mechanism. Because even within the white community, when you had the black versus white and segregation, you had those in the white community that were really at the top and oppressing their own whites, but using the black part of it to maintain the structure. But the issue is the system is designed right now to ensure that the average man and woman, boy or girl, young man, young woman, the average person is marginalized to a life of financial insecurity for the rest of their lives. It is to subtly find ways to keep you trapped in a way that you will never be able to attain your financial freedom, let alone being able to have
True.
real freedom. Because financial freedom is just one part of it, of course. But those who have financial freedom can buy the other freedoms, right? But generally, you don't know. Let me show you something here, and we take this thing for granted. You do not choose your education; it is chosen for you. I know you think, you wake up and you send your kids to school, and you went to school, and you think that you went to Calabar, KC, George's, Wolmer's, whichever school you went to, Immaculate, and you felt that this was a free thing. Your parents are making choices. No, the school system is designed to channel you. Okay, you go to schools where they decide what you should learn, and they imprint that throughout your life cycle and get you to make subsequent choices based on that education. So your education is already designed to mess you up, believe it or not. Your medical
Yeah.
choices, you don't have medical choices, really. They have made sure that all the things that you could do for yourself are relatively outlawed. Any medical practitioner that tries to tell you otherwise will be disbarred and can't practice, and therefore can't make a living. So they have decided for you what your medications are and what your medical practitioners are. So you don't have freedom of choice in education. You don't have freedom of choice in your healthcare. Now, when it comes down to your finances, they also put regulations in place. What can you invest in? Who can you invest with? And who can advise you on investing? And you can only use the people that have gone through their system, that have programmed them and programmed what they can tell you about and how they tell you about it. And then they regulate what products you can invest in and what you can have as a legitimate pension plan versus whatever. So again, your finances, you're not free to choose. Your health, you're not free to choose. Your education, you're not free to choose. Then when you go to the grocery store to buy your grocery, what can you buy? Only what they have authorized. So if they authorize a cancer-causing product that is nice and sweet and in a lovely package, that's what you eat. If somebody else would have given you something else that doesn't meet their requirements and can't pass their, they will make sure it can't pass. If they're going to offer you real authentic stuff, they're going to limit it. So here again, your food, you've lost your freedom of choice. So food, education, medication, finances, what's left? So you have no idea, but you are a slave. We are slaves. Then while you're working very hard and say, I'm working hard, yes, I know I have to pay taxes, and they have a plethora of taxes. You pay so many taxes through your every part of your body, right? You're paying taxes. You pay, property taxes, you pay education taxes, you pay hard trust tax, you pay NIS, you pay National Housing Trust, even though you may never get a benefit from that ever, depending on where you are in the cycle. And if you get a benefit, it's really your money you're getting back and paying interest on it. Then they tax you through indirectly through inflation and wipe away your purchasing power. So again, what's a slave? A slave is somebody who doesn't have control over his life. He can't control his income. He can't control his health. He can't control his education. So really, we're living in a modern form, a very, very sophisticated, very, very modern form of slavery. And we have been lulled into a state of complacency where we just feel comfortable and think that this is okay. Or we know something right, but we're not empowered through our minds to be able to take hold of it and fight back. And that's what the UIC is trying to do. Mr.
Yeah.
Wright,
And
your thoughts on
what I like to say is that since I've been mentored by you as to how to reason through this quagmire, I've come to realize that you don't have a choice. The only choices you're offered is the choice they want you to have.
Yes.
So in another jurisdiction, I was told you can have anything you want, but it has to be this. Right?
Yeah,
So it's the same thing here. You can have everything you want, but it has to be what they prescribe.
Look at the political scene. I know there are many Jamaicans out there who actually believe they're making a choice when they vote for one or the two colonial parties. No, look at what they've done. They have effectively shut down the UIC, make sure that you don't hear about us on radio and television normally, right? So they've shut down the communication to you, to the people, right? And they fund these two groups. They make sure that they're heavily funded, and they give them airtime every single day, every morning, every afternoon, every evening. You get airtime for these two. So your minds are being programmed, right? Your choices. The green, the orange, the green, the orange. That's the only choice you have. Anything else is not practical, not doable, not reasonable. They're just something. They're not going to go anywhere. It'll never work. And they program you through that from school right through. And they give you two options, which is really no option at all. Because once you vote for one or the other, those who fund them behind the scenes, those who give them the 500 million they're going to get this election cycle alone, are the winners. So whether you vote green or orange, the PSOJ oligarchs win. You need to
And,
know
and,
that.
and,
Let's get that through to
I,
everybody. Yeah, go ahead.
I know this is an interview about my candidacy, but please allow me to share this.
Sure.
I remember when I joined UIC, and after you reviewed my CV, and sometime after, you asked if I could, well, you assigned me a particular task and asked if I could manage, and I said yes. And we had a discussion where I shared with you what I can do and what I want to do, and you smiled and said, okay, go ahead. But know that the system is stacked against us. And I was like, okay, all right, the system is stacked against you, but I can do this. And I started working that task. Let me be more forthcoming. When you asked me to be the press officer for want of a better term, and you mentioned that there's a media blockade on the UIC, and I was gung ho. I was like, I can get this done. And then when I got into the task and I realized that none of the major broadcast stations, whether visual or audio, wanted anything to do with the UIC, I was like, wow. And I mean, press releases, phone calls, follow-up phone calls, emails, none of it. As a matter of fact, to this day, if I go on my email and send it to a particular media consortium, my email comes back as being blocked. Right? And I remember when I realized that, and we spoke about it, I realized the Rupert Murdoch scandal out of the UK. That's what it was about. The Fox scandal that came after that with the catch and release thing. It's the same thing where they make sure they destroy any story they don't want broadcasted. So
Absolutely.
it's the same thing that is happening to the UIC here. So you're correct. They're only
And
making sure what they want to get out gets out.
and the funny thing about it is, if you know, even the algorithms, the people don't know this, but the UIC is not only being blocked by mainstream media within Jamaica, even the algorithms from the um, um, big data companies, they have since been given information to shadow ban the UIC. And so our feeds don't get all over the place. You may see us online and so on. It doesn't get everywhere. And then we the people now, we the people, we have a great responsibility. If all of us were to fight the algorithm and fight the traditional media and push the UIC and push the narrative and push it to our families, to our friends, and aggressively push it, we can overcome. But I think sometimes we're a little bit complacent. We're what is the UIC doing? And we don't realize that the UIC is you and me. The UIC is not Mr. Patterson. The UIC is not Mr. Wright. The UIC is Mr. Patterson, Mr. Wright, and
All of
you.
us.
So if we all get involved and get engaged and stop waiting for the UIC to do something, it's UIC. You have to get involved. You have to be a part of the mission and the vision. You have to eat it and digest it and make it a part of you and communicate it with your family and friends and get them involved. But let's move on. I want to ask you now, Mr. Wright, about the mission of the UIC. So you told us the vision before. The vision is a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. I love that vision because
So do I.
a vision statement a vision statement is aspirational. A vision statement tells you what kind of future we're working towards. And when we say a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people, it's diametrically opposed to the Jamaica today, which brings out the worst in all its people. I have watched me and my wife transformed in this country from the sweet, innocent, um, you know, sorry, I have this country. It tears you down.
Yeah,
It
you're no
breaks
jaded.
you down. Huh?
Jaded by circumstance.
Yeah, it drains you. It corrupts you. It bends you. It grinds you into the dust. And it takes a lot of effort, Mr. Wright, a whole heap of effort to keep your head up, to pull up and just say, no, me nah go down there. Me nah, and you have to pull, it's very hard. I have never, I have never experienced the kind of human degradation I have seen in Jamaica. I have been to many countries, Mr. Wright. I've been to China, Myanmar, Africa, Germany, France, England, Netherlands, Cuba, Bahamas. I've been to so many places. The level of human degradation. I mean, when you take a human being and degrade them, this country makes almost everybody here a criminal by virtue of the system. Because for you to survive in it, for you to to make it, for you to just get by, the amount of obstacles that are in your way, the amount of pressures and pulls, and then the evil that comes from people. I've seen people do some evil things. You know, when a person eat and drink with you and then goes on public media and just blatantly lies about you, like just say that it's just unimaginable. Now, of course, the world is full of evil people. I mean, it's not just Jamaica. I mean, there are many people, Machiavellians, I mean, all over the world. But I have never seen it as bad, as dirty, as evil, as corrupt, as degrading as I've seen it here. And I've worked with people from almost every culture, Chinese, Indians. I've been to India. I've gone into the ghettos of India. I've slept in a little room on a cot with my Indian brothers and sisters and eat out of their pot and eat the big Bombay looking mango with them. I've been in the mud hut communities in the hills of Ghana where they don't even speak English, and I've slept with the people there and ate and drink with them, and I've been involved. But this is the worst I've ever seen, and I'm not exaggerating. I have never seen anything. What they've done with us, what these two parties and those who control them have done with our people, is an amazing act of social degradation. You talk about social engineering. They have socially engineered the most corrupted mind, they call it bad mind, and they say it with glee. They love to talk about bad mind, and they've made that into a part of their political vernacular. But they don't know what they've done. They've in fact created a terrible concentration of bad mind, and I'm not saying it in the way they mean. Bad mind, depraved minds in this country. They have so messed up the nation that the work before us, Mr. Wright, what we're going to have to do to repair this nation is very urgent, very critical, and every day that we lose the opportunity of beginning what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore to revive and restore his people, every day that Jamaica continues under these two tribal leadership is a day that makes it harder to reverse what has been done to our people.
Very, very much so. The urgency is now because this is the generation, or well, let's not say the generation, but if we look at the global trend, this is our last opportunity. This is the last opportunity for a preemptive strike on the system that will create the turnaround that will make every Jamaican better. The last.
Yeah, it is.
And if we don't do it now, we will never have this opportunity again because we're going into that age of total control, if you want a better term.
And also being met. Like, remember, I explained this to people. I don't think many understand what I've said. Our school system, Mr. Wright, every single solitary year fails 80%, 70% or more of our students. Every single. Just imagine a country where year 1 to year 30, for example, to year 40 to year 50, you fail, meaning 70% of those who leave your school cannot reason, comprehend, analyze in order to be a highly productive, informed, civilized citizen. Every year, you're putting out that kind of product, 70% of that product. The 30% that remains that may be somewhat okay, not all okay now, but they're a little bit, they're above the minimum markup, that 30%. At least half or more of them will migrate shortly thereafter because they're the best of the crop and they will leave. Some will stay off the best, but majority will go. And then that 70% plus the rest of the marginal group, that grows. And after a while, the concentration of the wrong kind of minds and the wrong kinds of graduates is now multiplying. They're having children and children and children, and they're multiplying and taking over. And remember, these people now are prime for being controlled mentally. So they will fall for all the tricks in the book. I hear the Prime Minister talking about how good they have done with the economy, how they have spent $40 billion on the people, and how they gave money out during the thing when people were. And I'm like, who will fall for this? Who? And
I can tell you who is the persons who don't realize that we have just gotten $1 trillion worth of sovereign debt lumped on our backs, and we were sold by their media a bill of goods that this is fantastic. For the first time, Jamaica has $1 billion budget.
Yes.
And you
$1
don't realize
trillion.
that the budget is financed by somewhat 90% plus debt.
$1 trillion
So
budget.
what does that mean?
Yeah, yeah.
What does that
Many
mean?
Jamaicans,
It means every succeeding generation of children born in this country have to carry that debt burden, and on top of that, has to find the means of repaying it in a country that does not produce anything.
and the way we
That's what it
repay
is.
it, the way we remember. So the Jamaican people, right? There is value in our economy. There's a value chain that many do not understand. The value chain is there because a few companies continue to, year after year, have billions of dollars in profits right here. The banks, for example, they never fail. They have billions of dollars in coming in. There are other companies, I won't mention their names, who are making billions and trillions. Now, how are they making this? They're making this by a profit which sacrifices the vast majority. And how do they do this? They sacrifice us with a bad policing system. So we live in fear and we live in a high murder rate and violence and all that corrupts and makes us weak. Crime and violence. We suffer this by having a school system which is substandard, poorly paid teachers, in my estimation, even poorly trained teachers, and infrastructure which is bad, and supplies that is needed for the education process, the kind of tools and equipment which puts us 25 years behind most countries. So education is bad. So even though you don't pay that, they may not pay the money physically that you're seeing, you're paying for it, and you're paying taxes in poor policing, poor education. You're paying taxes in poor healthcare. Because remember, the money that should have gone there is going somewhere else. It's going in the pockets of those who own the nation's debt as opposed to into the nation's development. And so we're losing on our healthcare, we're losing on our education, we're losing on all of on infrastructure and police. And so the bad roads, the bad transportation system that makes life inefficient and therefore ineffective and therefore burdensome and stressful and pressuring on the mind, and the tension goes up, and we have more spousal problems, we have more parental problems, because all of these things lead into one another. When life is harder than necessary for mommy and daddy, the children feel it. And when they
True.
feel it and the teacher feel it, it is compounded in the classroom. And then it's compounded on the street. And when they leave school and become unemployed or underemployed or unemployable over time, that tension is felt in the community. And that's where you have the crime and the violence, the rapes and all the kind of stuff. And then you have the small man trying to make his way and realizing the system is stacked against him. At some point, he breaks. He breaks in many ways. Sometimes he breaks by joining one of the two tribal parties to get something out of it. So he becomes a part of the corruption stream, and he now becomes a die-hearted fan to procure his corrupt bread. When my party in a power, I'm going to get something. So I'm going to fight and kill, do anything to make sure my party win. So that when I get in, I will get my little something. And so that's the kind of environment that they have created. This dog-eat-dog, this tribal, destructive way that depraves the mind of parent and child and permeates the entire society, and it gives us the kind of Jamaica we have: unsafe, unclean, disorderly, underproductive, and
Very
therefore,
much so.
yeah,
So no, that was year 5
yes,
since quote unquote independence. And now imagine that continuing into year 60 and beyond.
exactly,
It's total destruction.
yes,
Now, I know these people keep asking the amount of candidates the UIC have. We'll get to that another time, but please bear in mind, it's not the amount of candidates we have, it's who supports the candidates that we have. Right? And if we don't have a candidate in your area, feel free to recommend someone from your area. Speak to that person, or have that person speak to us, someone of good repute, somebody who's of sound reasoning. We don't specify high education, but the person must be educated to the level to be able to understand and think critically, to be able to articulate him or herself, and be able to reason, especially when it comes to problem solving. All right. So please, let's focus on supporting who we have and bringing other candidates in who are of the caliber that will stand up and represent you with the truest form.
If you support the movement, the candidates will come. We'll get the candidates. But if we keep sitting out there waiting for, it's like a person wanting a fire, and they keep asking the fire to give him heat, but he won't provide any log or any fuel. So if you don't provide any fuel, the fire can't burn. So provide some fuel, not get involved in the fuel business. All right, next question, Mr. Wright. Can you explain the mission of the UIC to our viewers and why it should matter to all Jamaicans? What is the mission of the UIC?
I love this part. To create a non-partisan constitutional republic that protects the rights of everyone equally. Now, we have suffered under the colonial master system, sometimes referred to as the Westminster system, for eons. Now, the UIC will create a system that will be a true republic. But more than that, it will be non-partisan, meaning party politics that we have known under the Westminster system, where you support the orange or the green just because, will no longer exist. The party won't be the driving factor, but rather a quality of representation. A state-sponsored electoral system that exposes every candidate equally. They'll have access to the same debate stage, the same radio talk shows, the same town halls, the same media, the same banners, the same ads. Everything will be equal for everyone. And a government coming from that will be a government of unity, not opposition and government, but a unity government that will represent the people, and you will have continuity in programs, because those programs will not come from a party standpoint, but from the development of the country standpoint. Remember when Omar Davis had said that he knows he's never good for the country, but he does make it run. And we have seen all the other bad decisions made from a partisan standpoint that will end under this non-partisan constitutional republic that the UIC has proposed. But here's the big part. My rights will be as equal to any Mr. Big Man. Everybody will have the same legal and constitutional protection. You won't find any that is more legal than others.
1 second, Mr. Wright. Mr. Errol Samuels, welcome to the program, sir. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
I've spoken to Mrs. Patterson a few, weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I got you on watching the thing on TV as well.
Just close that one. Yes, go ahead.
I heard you said, about the 1,000 people that you would like to donate for you to be viable in terms of advertising, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the UIC have gone through. The UIC have gone through a little scandalous period recently.
No. The UIC has not gone through any scandalous period at all. We have never had. Hold on. We have never had any scandals at all in the UIC.
People have suggested or tried to heap up negativity on the UIC.
Right. Yes.
For the record, I support your vision. All right. I'm not trying to be negative here towards UIC. I'm just letting you know. Now we got like 4 million people average out here in the diaspora.
Yes.
All right. You should be able to at least get 10,000, because 10,000 people.
You said you should be able, or we should be able?
The UIC should be able to at least get 10,000 people from the diaspora. Mm-hmm. Over the years that you have been doing that, I've watched most of your interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, when it comes to money, people are very sensitive, as you have now probably come to realize. All right. People need to see the UIC. You have a money issue. All right. I'm pretty sure a lot of people out here are willing to donate as well. But they need accountability. I suggested.
Sorry, Mr. Samuels, 1 second. Are you suggesting the UIC does not offer accountability?
No, I did not say that.
Okay.
probably don't know how to assess that, because I saw the thing where they say how you spend your money. I saw that too.
Okay, not just that,
Alright.
but we're audited every year, and we submit our audited report to the ECJ. So
Yes.
so the UIC is very accountable, but I think you corrected yourself by saying they might not know how to assess accountability.
Exactly.
Mhm.
They would like to be more break down to their standard. I suggested to Mrs. Patterson, like, listen, when you coming on air for the UIC, when I click on you, the UIC, I see like 2 people or 10 people waiting, etc., etc. If you could design a system like that when people, you said you want 1,000 people. If you could design a system like that, say, okay, you're starting with, you have 100 people, but you need 900 people. So when you guys come on the live and you start talking, you say, okay, and you put it on the screen. Okay, we have 100 people. We need 900 more. Come on, guys. So. And couple that with targets. We would like to target a rally in so and so and so. We're going to cost X amount of money. We need all of that. We're going to target fly. We're going to target advertisement on the radio. If you can do that, and then people can see where the money is going. Forget about the statement and the accounts that come every once a year. Once they can see that in real time. Like I said, Jamaica are bandwagons now. I want them to see a lot of people coming on. There will be far more to join in. Their bandwagons below success.
Okay, Mr. Wright, want to respond to you. Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
Go ahead.
First, I want to thank the gentleman for calling in. I didn't hear his name, so forgive the reference.
Mr. Errol Samuels.
Mr. Samuels. All right, now, firstly, accountability. The UIC doesn't only just submit itself to audit. All the financial information of the UIC is published, one, to our annual membership congress first, and then to the public, the Jamaican public at large. No other political party in Jamaica recently registered or grandfathered into this system does that. That's one. Now, you mentioned that the UIC should have a system to broadcast or show a scoreboard of contributors to the system that the founder is describing. That is being worked on. But like everything in the UIC, there is a series of roadblocks and talent deficiency that protracts what we do. What we would love to have is persons like yourself being more involved in the process, so you can, one, report to your audience as to what you see within the UIC, and also be an active participant in shaping the outlook that you want to see. So that program, that can be your baby that you assist the UIC with running. But I have good news. That program is already in place. So I'm asking you and the 10,000 people that you believe that we can bring into the system to be a participant. All right? If you keep following us, you'll see the information we made available right now. We're in a struggle to get yet another account, which we have done over the years, struggled to get another account. But thankfully, we have our PC bank account, that little PC bank account. They have never let us down. So we're standing by and waiting diligently for Jamaicans to wake up to the reality that special interest groups are working hard to keep the UIC down. And the narrative that is being exposed by those who are not fully exposed to the UIC, that UIC isn't doing enough to be exposed, need to understand that the UIC needs you to be exposed. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
So what we're going to do, we're going to make a big decision now, Mr. Errol Samuels. We're going to invite you to join the team that Mr. Wright has just spoken about, that is trying to do that now. And Mr. Wright made it very clear that one of the big problems of the UIC is that we have a human capacity deficit. We have many, over the years, one second, Mr. Samuels, over the years that I've been trying to build this movement, one thing I've noticed, we're never short of advisors, never ever. From the first time I started out in late 2012, 2013, and Mr. Samuels have dropped off. You're still there. Oh, good. We have no. I'm going to let you respond shortly. We have had tons of advisors, persons who come on and tell us, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And we welcome that. We welcome feedback. We welcome suggestion. Where we have a deficit is that those persons who tell us what we can or should do are never available to help us to do it. So now, Mr. Samuels, I'm wondering if you are going to be one of those who tell us what to do but not able to help us, or would you be willing to volunteer to help us to do it?
Can I speak now?
Yes, you may.
Okay, like I said, the first thing I asked for when I called UIC, because I didn't call to become a member, I just wanted to donate. All right? I subscribe to everything that you're doing. And I didn't have a problem with your bank account, because I run a business. I understand how that works.
Yeah, man, that's fine.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm in the PTA. I get all of that. But other people who don't have that kind of experience or knowledge, they're very sensitive.
Yeah,
okay?
man. We understand that. But in the interest of time, though, in the interest of time, what are you saying? Are you willing to help us to get it done? Because we suffer from a lack of human capacity. Good.
I'm in the diaspora, and I've been doing that already. I've told
No,
people.
I know, man. I appreciate, and I sense that. I can tell that you are a very active supporter. What I want now is to see if you can join us from a engaged, you're a part of the team. You're involved in helping to deliver on this aspect that you have just described for us. If you can join the team, so you're no longer somebody outside looking in and advising us. You're now on the inside helping us to get it done. So on the inside, for example, you'll be able to ask all the questions. So maybe there's some things you want to know, is this happening? Is that happening? And you'll get answers to those. And then you'll say, what are our capacity? Then you'll get answers to those. And then you'll say, okay, here's what I can do. So do we have a deal?
Okay, fine. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Perfect. So what we're going to do now, Mr. Samuels, I want you to send a WhatsApp message to this number and say, your name and that you are volunteering to help with this. You can do it in voice if you want. And we're going to follow up with you and make sure that this happens. Okay?
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Samuels. Appreciate your effort.
Lovely.
All right.
We need more people like you, Mr. Samuels. Wonderful. All right. Take care.
Good night, Mr. Samuels.
Bye-bye. All right. So that was very good. I see some comments in the chat. We haven't gotten to much of the comments or any of the comments tonight. But I saw one person that was asking a question. Where is it? We'll come back.
While you're looking for that, let me just tell the person who asked, yes, the UIC is audited every year. It's a regulatory requirement. And those audit information is published firstly to our membership at the annual membership congress and then released publicly.
So what you want to know, and I know Miss Sonia Ellison, she's a devil's advocate kind of questioner. And she asks some questions to try to really make sure the UIC is fully au fait. So Miss Ellis is asking, is the audit done by an independent auditor? It would not be an audit otherwise.
If it wasn't by the independent and qualified auditors, yeah.
Exactly. So we have an auditor who we don't know, is not a friend of mine or a friend of Mr. Wright or a friend of any member of the NEC. We don't know the person. We simply put out a call, and we had an auditor who has a firm, full firm, pretty big firm actually, and they have agreed to take on the audit of the UIC, and they have audited us now for the last 3 years or 4 years, don't remember which one. And so far, they have always given us a clean bill of health. In fact, I remember the first time we sat with the auditor, Mr. Wright, and we had just had one of those moments. Remember when we had a group of persons who tried to take over the organization from the inside? A coup attempt was done by some people, and one of those coup leaders was actually the treasurer at the time. And when he when he parted company with us because of how the coup didn't go down the way they intended. And I know after I'd left the books with them and I went, because I'm an accountant myself, a CPA, so when I went and checked the books, I was shocked to see the shoddiness of the accounting that was done. It was still okay, and the numbers were there, the stuff, but it was just so poorly done. And so I went through and working with the then treasurer, Miss Naika Williams, Mrs. Patterson, we sat down and went back through and built back all the ledgers and got all the pieces, the details, and whole heap of work. So I'm president, I may have to roll up the sleeve and go on the back and go sit down and go back through. So I can't be president. I have to be bookkeeper now and then accountant. And we prepared a set of financials for the auditor. And the gentleman who said, I have never seen a better prepared set of financials. I have to accept this audit. And he accepted the audit and did it because of the quality of the work that we had done as a team. Hats off to Miss Naika Williams, our now Deputy Treasurer, for the tremendous help that she provided us during that time. And I mean, all of this couldn't have been possible without my wife, who is not an accountant, but she's very meticulous because she don't like when nobody ramp with her name about money. So she makes sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed by her following up on every piece of paper and making sure that it is there. She said, make sure it's scanned and filed into the appropriate bucket, whichever folder it must be in. And she created this massive spreadsheet every month and sent to the then treasurer, the one who tried to take over the organization. And he said, oh, that's not important. And she said, yes, it's important. We must have detailed records of everything. And it's a good thing she did that because we could stand the test of time when the audit came. 1 second. Hello and good evening, Dr. Coretta Brown Johnson. How are you today?
Good evening, Mr. Patterson. Good evening, Mr. Wright. I just wanted to say good night.
Good night.
Wish Mr. Wright well on his candidacy.
Thank you, Dr. Brown Johnson.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really don't have any questions. I just wanted to hail up the team.
Thank you so much. And we saw you on earlier on, but we got so engrossed in our conversation. We didn't say big up to Dr. Coretta or to VP Powell, Jasmine Powell, and all of you, many people, Christopher Lawrence, Juliet Chambers, Donna Ree, Riley, Sonia Ellis, Janet Graham, Jam Flex, and so many others, Replay TV.
Yes, in the chat. Wonderful support.
Yeah, big up to all of you. It's going well so far. Thank you, Dr. Brown Johnson. Appreciate it. And
No problem.
stay tuned.
I will. Have a good night. All the best.
Good night. All right. So we're moving along, Mr. Wright. We're running out of time though, but let's see if we can pick up a few more questions that I have here for you.
And let me just ask if any of my Betheltown Uniters are on, just put a big up in the chat. All right, I have a little surprise for you. Go ahead.
Wonderful.
Go ahead,
I can't leave without just saying something about our mission statement, to create a non-partisan constitutional Republic of Jamaica that will protect the life, liberty, and property rights of all Jamaicans equally. Okay? I love this mission because it dovetails nicely with our vision. And what makes it so interesting is that in the end, when you're elected as an MP, you're not owned and controlled by any special interest group because you were funded publicly by the state and given equal access like all the other candidates. And when you go to Parliament, or in our case, it's going to be a Congress, when you're sitting there as an equal with everyone. In today's Parliament, there are unequal MPs. Some are on the government side, they're bigger, they have more clout, and some are on the opposition side, they're lesser than. In a UIC Congress, all elected representatives are equal. They have an equal say, and they can discuss and contribute and recommend like any other, and have their positions being considered as part of the debate equally. And they're not making decisions now based on partisan faction, because that is no longer supported in the system. You see, if you design a system to be poor, it will give you poor results. We're designing a system that works to unify our people, a system that gives us ministers who are subject matter experts, not MPs, but persons who are qualified and competent in the areas for which they were chosen. We have an executive body, a president which is elected nationally, not somebody who is determined as leader of their party through whatever backdoor mechanism. Like, the current prime minister became prime minister because the disgraced prime minister put him forward as the person to replace him. And he was crowned, coronated. We don't want that. We want a system where our executive leadership is fairly elected by the nation. We want a system where our ministers of government are qualified and competent and drawn from the best of us. Any Jamaican around the world who has the competences and want to serve can be nominated, and as a vetting process that elects them. So this system that we have put together is going to be a model not just for the Caribbean, but also for Africa and for the rest of the world. Every first world nation will marvel at the kind of republic we're building and say, this is what a true republic is. And Jamaica will once again not only lead the world in music or entertainment, but also in politics and in economics. So we're getting there. All right, let's look now on the values of the UIC, Mr. Wright. What are the core values of the UIC, and how do those values support your own personal values?
Now, the UIC value system is one that is strongly anti-corruption. It's one that looks to empower Jamaicans in the greatest way and allow them to take charge of their lives. For me, it resounds with me because of those facts. Now, if you can imagine a Jamaica where your personal liberty is yours to use with very, very robust personal responsibility. That is something that we have only heard about in quote unquote first world countries. So imagine Jamaica embracing that fully, and a political movement, we don't like the party, that make sure that that is ingrained in our culture, that we use personal responsibility in our decisions that affects the whole national sphere. So that is what is impactful
Absolutely.
about our value system.
Yes. I mean, we have some words that we normally talk about when we talk about our value system. One is individual liberty, and the other is personal responsibility. The other one that we talk about is equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal justice. And the third, clean, safe, and orderly. So these are words that espouses our values. We care about your sovereignty as an individual. That is the core of the UIC's message. Believe it or not, See, and by the way, that messages may not resonate with many people because they don't even realize that they've lost their sovereignty. That from the time of chattel slavery until now, the average person has no sovereignty. Sovereignty is vested in a monarch. Sovereignty is vested in a parliament, not in you as an individual. The UIC brings it back to the fore and says, no, 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 no. You are sovereign. Nobody no more sovereign than you. There's no king, no queen, no prime minister, no president, no priest, no pope who is more sovereign than you. You are a sovereign entity, and your government and your constitution must recognize that sovereignty and never violate that sovereignty. So in a UIC republic, you will never again have to fear any government seeking to violate your bodily autonomy, seeking to violate your right to freedom of speech, or freedom of movement, or freedom of association, or freedom of choice. Because your sovereignty, you are like a state. We talk about a sovereign. When we talk about sovereignty of a country, yeah, it's a sovereign country. They should decide where they want to go. Well, the same is true for you. You're a sovereign individual, and the purpose of government is to protect your sovereignty. And the purpose of a
Yes.
constitution is to protect you from government. Let me say that again. The purpose of government is to protect your sovereignty. And the purpose of a constitution is to protect you from government. And the UIC has gotten that right. We understand that it is pivotal, it is vitally important that we help everyone to understand that they have a right to their individual liberty. And that comes with responsibility. So you also have personal responsibility. And we define that in our manifesto, what that means. And then when you have your liberty protected and you're taking personal responsibility, your government now ensure you have a safe, clean, and orderly country in which to self-actualize. If your country is safe, you can build any success you want. If your country is clean, if your country is orderly, you can be efficient and effective. And most importantly, if you have equal opportunity as everybody else, if you have equal rights like everybody else, the prime minister shouldn't have more rights than you. The president shouldn't have more rights than you. So if you have equal opportunity, equal rights, and equal justice, which means the justice system must be designed to allow you to have proper access to justice, even if you have not one penny to your name. It shouldn't be that for you to gain access to justice, you need to have a big bank account. And if the other person with a bigger bank account than you, then his access to justice is greater than yours. No, we must have a system where justice is blind to your economic circumstances. Justice must focus on justice. And that is why we agree with Marcus Garvey when he says justice is greater than the law. Justice is greater than the law. So the law must bend to justice. And when you have a good constitution, that's what it does. It makes sure that justice is on the side of every single individual, rich or poor or in between. There's no way, shape, or form where because you are so rich, you get more justice, or because you're so poor, you get less justice. It must be justice for everyone, and it must be justice not delayed, because if it is, then it is justice denied. Right, Mr. Wright?
Very much so, sir. Very much so.
Right, Mr. Wright. Okay, so next question. It's the UIC has a very principle-based manifesto. Unlike other parties, our manifesto doesn't change from year to year. You're not getting a new one being put out for this election or that election, where we're trying to come up with new gimmicks to see if we can win people over or trick people with thresholds in their income tax or whatever. We have a very principled manifesto, where the principles are, for want of a better word, eternal. Because the principles are based on protecting your rights, not based on the whims of whoever your new leader is. It's based on protecting your fundamental rights. So our principle-based approach sets us apart from the others. Can you tell us which are the three most important elements of the manifesto to you? I know they're all important, but maybe there are three that stands out for you in the manifesto that you want to say. Of all of them, I think it's about 31 of them. These three really stands out for me. What are those for you?
Yeah. All right. So when I think about the manifesto, the first one that jumps out at me is self-defense. And
Wow.
I love the rationale that the only reason for violence is self-defense. And of course, outside of that, force and fraud is prohibited in any human relationship. I absolutely love that. So I believe in the individual right to defend him or herself. And what we have is a state right now that is very paternalistic and looking to be everything to everyone. And the state has nothing to offer Jamaicans in reality if they look at it. The economy has failed, not failing, but has failed because we are mired in debt, which any business that has so much debt that Jamaica is carrying would have been bankrupted and shut down a long time ago. So the state has failed. The infrastructure and all the services that the state is supposed to provide subsequently is failing or has failed as well. And the only thing that they can offer us is fear. Fear of our neighbors, fear of the guy down the road because we don't know him, just all around fear. And they have their police force that they say will protect us. But in actuality, they can't protect all of us. So what we find ourselves in is a vicious cycle of poverty without justice, a vicious cycle of violence without justice. And when
So no security or little security, and no justice.
correct. So now, since the state can't provide you with adequate defense, you must have that right to defend yourself. And it comes from a place where that defense of self is one of your innate rights.
And even if Mr. Wright, the state somehow could protect us, all of us, all the time. Even if they could, they never have the right to take away your right of self-defense.
That is where I was going.
Bottom line. So your right to defend yourself is an innate human right. It is yours by birth. It is yours by creation. Nobody no have the right to take away your right to defend yourself. What they can do, what the state has a right to do, not even a right, because the state has no right. The state has responsibilities. The responsibility of the state is to make sure that they create as safe as possible environment in which for you to operate. And how do you do that? They make sure that they have a police service which is highly respected and highly regarded by the mass of citizens because of how efficient and effective and respectful it is at carrying out its duty of defending your personal sovereignty. When we have a police service that understands that it's not here to manhandle, brutalize, and disrespect the citizenry, but it's here rather to respect and serve and protect the
In the
citizens'
truest sense.
sovereignty.
In the truest sense.
Your sovereignty. It's not here to represent the state. They have mistaken it. A police service is here to defend the citizens, even from the state. So when you have a proper police service, the police officer must know your rights, remind you of your rights, and help you to procure your rights, even from the state. So when somebody tell them to shoot to kill, they say, no, that is not our duty to shoot to kill. Our duty is to ensure that every citizen's right to their life, liberty, and property are protected.
Equally.
From all criminals, elected and unelected, in uniform and out of uniform. So if you're a criminal and you're elected, you're a criminal, and they should treat you as such. If you are a criminal in uniform, they should treat you as such. And no criminals, none whatsoever, should be above the law, whether they are elected or not, whether they hold high office or not. So, for example, the kind of shenanigans we're going through now where we don't know who the six are, who are in violation, and the Prime Minister can put a gag order, none of that. A true police service would say, absolutely not. We're launching an investigation right now. We don't need your permission to launch one, by the way.
Right, but guess what?
And we're going to...
The system is so created to protect them that if we had a true police force that would actually protect the right of the citizen, their cronies in the other adjunct legal services would try to protect them. And that is why I love the UIC, because the UIC has offered a solution to tear down their entire house of cards. And that is why a non-partisan constitutional republic is essential, because it represents the complete change, a change in the entire dynamics to make sure that the system works as it should, that all our rights are protected at every level, not at one level.
Absolutely. From everybody. From president, from prime, whatever you are, you have no more rights than anybody else.
And I love the part that says that let me see if I can get the paraphrasing right. That the constitution, the Jamaica's new constitution under the UIC, will not only tell the government what it should do, but what it cannot do.
Exactly. So, for example, the government would not be able to pass laws and regulations that prevents you from trading with somebody who wants to trade with you mutually.
There you go.
So, for currently right now, the laws they have. If I want to trade with you and you want to trade with me, they can say no, you can't do that
True again.
because we have decided that you can't have that trade because we say so. On what basis you say so? Well, we're the government, we're the law. Who give you that right to say me and my fellow, the two of you want trade, and we decide we want to trade in that thing. The thing itself is not bad. Meaning, for example, it's not like we're trying to trade a bomb to go blow up something. We're just talking about our normal trade. We want to trade a product or service that both of us create or one of us create and the other one wants. And you want to say no. For us to have that trade, we need to go through you and you must give us permission to have that trade, even though you have nothing to do with the production of this thing. You never produce it. You cannot identify where this trade is harming anybody else. We're not using fraud, we're not using force. So I'm not forcing you to buy this product. And I'm not defrauding you in selling you this product. But because them says so, we can't have the trade. Right now, there are many things Jamaicans cannot do and don't even know that they can't do it because they've been cocooned into regulations designed explicitly to protect the trade for a few people at the expense of everybody else.
Exactly.
Let's move on.
But you know,
Yes.
the UIC, and you ask the question, why can't I trade with somebody else? And they say, because I'm government, you can't trade with that person. But here it is. The UIC systems also make sure that the government can't use that language either. Can't say, I'm government, so you can't.
Exactly.
You have to go through a process, and that process is protected. That protection comes from you, the citizen, you, citizen one, you, citizen John, you, citizen Jane, being able to elect a senator independently of the government, whose job is to make sure that the laws that are passed are just and equitable. Simply put.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine when we have a system whereby instead of the prime minister and opposition leader appointing their friends and companies to be senators, the people of each parish elect their senator? So the people of St. Catherine elects who they want to be their senator. St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, Kingston, St. Andrew, Portland, St. Elizabeth. And now you're going to have 14 senators who are not beholden to a party. They're not beholden to the PSOJ. The only people they're beholden to
Is the
are
citizens.
the constituents of the parish. Yes. Because those persons, they don't have to go and get any money from the PSOJ to run their campaign because the campaign is funded equally for all candidates. They get the same, don't get the money now, they get the same platform. So if you qualify to run, you get the same platform: newspaper, radio, television, internet, town hall meetings, debates. You get the same access. So now we will judge candidates based on the content of their character, not based on the content of the PSOJ's bank account that is bankrolling them. Yeah. I see Miss Ellis was calling. I know she has some interesting point on audits to talk about. Let me hear what she has to say. I'm just calling her back here.
While I'm calling her back,
Yes.
I don't see any more Battletown United shouting out. I know I have some on YouTube. Aiden, by the way, Aiden, son, it's time for bed. Thanks for watching so far. I know your sister is already sleeping.
No, this is social study class for him, man. It's a social study class.
It is.
He's doing a late night session.
Well, he and I will watch it later, and he'll ask his question. He has a lot of questions.
All right. She never answered, so no problem. Let's move on because we only have 6 minutes to go. Miss Ellis, I saw your point about an internal auditor, and you're correct. Having an internal auditor is a good thing. We don't have that capacity yet, but we do have internal audits happening because even though I am the president, what I do, I personally make sure that I'm always checking on the finances that they're good. I can't do it all the time and fully, but I do check on stuff. And the entire NEC meets and they would look at what's going on. So, you have a finance committee that is supposed to look at the numbers. You have the entire NEC body that's supposed to look at the numbers. And of course, you have the external auditor that looks at it. And we have the ECJ that look at it too. So we're fully covered. My second to last question, Mr. Wright. The UIC has distilled its manifesto into a 10-point plan. One of the elements in the 10-point plan is our commitment to what we call land reparation. We believe that the land of Jamaica does not belong to the crown as they currently tell us. It does not belong to the government as they currently suggest to us. The land of Jamaica belongs to the people of Jamaica, particularly those whose foreparents were enslaved on this island. Do you agree or disagree with that premise, Mr. Wright?
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with that premise that the land belongs to the people. Now, this misconception that there is such a thing as crown land goes all the way back to the days of fiefdom, when the king was quote unquote, king or queen was lord of all that he or she surveys. And they would have all these lands and would give them out to the lords to go rule over them. And the peasantry that lives on it would be plunged into deep servitude, where whatever they produce on the land, they would get taxed by the Lord to a massive amount. The Lord would steal some for himself to enrich himself and give the rest to the king as tribute. So we still have that misconception in our laws that that is what is supposed to happen. That's why we pay property tax, and that's why I love the fact that the UIC says no property tax. Only two taxes.
Yes.
Only two taxes.
We're going to abolish property tax. I mean, so we're going to come back to the tax issue. We're going to return the land to the people. What does this mean? Returning the land to the people. We are going to make sure that every Jamaican family becomes a property owner in this country. Once you are a Jamaican whose foreparents were enslaved on this rock, you're entitled to property. We're not asking, if or but. And that property must be returned to you free of charge. That is the land. Now, of course, we'll have a configuration in which to do that. We're not going to tell you now because they're going to quickly copy it and water it down and promise it to you and then win elections and then don't do it. That's how they operate. So we stop giving out all of the details anymore about our solutions because they just copy it and use it and water it down. But the bottom line is we have a mechanism whereby when we're elected government, we're going to ensure that every one of you have your name on title, that you own a piece of Jamaica. And that is going to translate into 93% of us having home ownership in this country. We're going to borrow the model from Singapore, improve upon it tremendously, and make sure Jamaicans have access to high quality, affordable housing in this country. No more exorbitant prices for you. We're going to make sure houses are for living, not investment. If you want to invest, then fine, you can pay high prices for investment properties or whatever. But for the citizens, we want to make sure you have access to land, you have access to a decent quality home that you own as a property owner, and we're going to make that happen by beginning on the basis that the land is yours, free of charge, it must be partitioned to you, and your rights must be embedded in that, and you never again have to slave and work to buy land.
No.
To live on. You can buy land for other purposes. Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
That now creates what? Generational wealth.
Absolutely.
And that is the important thing. That is what we should not miss. Right? That it creates generational wealth. And somebody said yes and mentioned small farming. No. The UIC doesn't believe in anything small. They do that to keep us living subsistently, hand to mouth. No. We're going to create an agricultural program, fully organic, that puts these lands that are considered crown lands, lands that are not slated for any development, into large-scale organic agricultural production. Because remember, in the coming years, food and water security will be the thing that everybody talks about. Water has already been traded as a commodity on the New York Stock Exchange, just like oil. So we need to protect our freshwater sources. So all those people living on riverbanks and having effluents leaking into the river, we need to start thinking about that.
The bauxite has to go. The bauxite
Definitely.
mining has to go. They're killing our water. And by the way, I tell you where these two parties are going to take us now. Soon you're going to be told you cannot catch rainwater. You know that.
Yes.
There are laws already in the countries that are already dictating to us. They have laws already in those countries coming on more and more where they're saying it's illegal for you to catch rainwater. It's illegal for you to have a backyard farm, to raise chicken.
Mhm.
It's illegal for you to light a fire. So we're heading on some dangerous turf. They have a plan for us where you will own nothing according to them and you'll be happy. They want to return us to a system of slavery like we had before, but this time in a modern, sanitized, clean looking version where you're a slave, where you own nothing. You don't own the land, you don't own the house, you don't even own your body. So the UIC is big on making sure that we, this little country here, become the big, bright leader of liberty. The one country on the planet where no matter what the rest of the world is doing, we say, these borders here, only free people live here.
True.
This little border here, this picture it, this little piece of land, only free people live here. We will have nothing to do with globalized slavery of any form. The banking system has to change. Free banking has to come back, whereby the banking system is not monopolized and controlled by a few special interests and you can manipulate and lock out people. Credit must come back at a level where people can access capital through different formations and not be manipulated and cocooned into one sector, one group of people. We must emancipate our education system so the minds of our people are opened up and they understand themselves, understand relationship, and understand money, understand what's really happening so that nobody can fool me again. So we're talking about a complete liberation of our people, and the rest of the world will follow. As small as we are, we're going to lead the way of liberating the minds of men in order to liberate the bodies of men, in the words of Marcus Garvey, by us showing the world what true liberty is, what it means to be liberated, what it means to be united, what it means to be empowered. Unity, liberty, and empowerment. We are going to not only preach that message, but demonstrate that message in the governance model and how it brings out the best in all our people.
True.
Right?
Now, to answer two questions that I saw in the group, the police can investigate any crime, and we're not giving credence to any policing organization in the current establishment. But all these policing organizations, these investigative bodies that they have, is just part of the trick. We only need one. We don't need all. We just need one functioning investigative body. Let's remember that. We have one
Yeah.
potential candidate in Trelawney, and do we have a confirmed candidate in Trelawney, Mr. Founder?
No, we don't. No. We have actually a couple persons who are being vetted in Trelawney. Two persons being vetted in Trelawney right now, but we haven't confirmed them as yet. Yeah, but this business though of and we're closing off now. We're 3 minutes over. This land reparation, guys, it is serious. Allow the UIC to return the land to the Jamaican people. We know these two parties will never do it. I saw one of the parties trying to copy us now and trying to see if they can own the narrative. Don't let them own it because they're just going to own it to trick you. All they want to do is to trick you again for 5 more years. That's all they do. All their manifestos, all their plans are how do we win the next election? That's all they're about. And they are competing with each other because they're competing for scarce benefits and spoils. So whichever team gets in, yes, they get their slice of the pie. They get in to access your tax dollars, they get to borrow in your name, and they get to run their corruption enterprise. So whether it's a PNP corruption enterprise or a GLP corruption, it's still a corruption enterprise. You're still going to suffer. We the people, yes, I know those of you who are connected to the gravy train on one side or the other, you going to win and lose indirectly. You're going to win directly in the short term, the benefits you do get, but your country might lose. Your children going to lose, your family going to lose. And yes, I know you plan to skip out and go abroad, but there's no way that is better than yard. There's no other country where you'll feel as either really belong to it like this one. So let's fight for this country. Let's hold on to this country. Let's take this country back out of the claws of the colonial powers and liberate our finances, liberate our economy, liberate our education. Just imagine our healthcare, Mr. Wright, when we get back to giving credence to using nature to heal ourselves. When we remove the restrictions and regulation that prevents us from accessing all that nature has to give, so we can relearn what our ancestors knew and build upon that knowledge with our knowledge of physics and chemistry and biology. Build on it, not destroy it, not push it away and get us to absorb all kind of new chemicals, petrochemicals into our bodies and calling it healthcare. Let us get back to understanding our bodies, understanding nature, accessing all of God's wonderful creation to revitalize ourselves. Let us become the leaders of natural medicine to the world. Let people want to leave America and Canada and come here because we know we grow all the herbs and stuff and we grow all the organics, and you can come here now and get real health care, not fake health care, real health care, real education, real energy, where we harness and access God's beautiful energy, the solar, the geothermal, the bio, and make Jamaica the flagship of healthy living, the flagship of sustainability, the flagship of good governance, the flagship of a true free market economy, the flagship of people living in harmony because we respect our individual sovereignty. And that we want. At least I think so. And I hope so.
Definitely. Well said, unite or else. Unity or else.
Yeah, man. Final question for you, Mr. Wright. What will it take for you to win your seat in
It will take a team. It
North?
will take a team of people that
Mhm.
are willing to step up and work. In all the polling divisions, I think it's what, 38 polling divisions. I'd have to double check that
Mhm.
number for you. But I need people. I need a team of at least 4 in each polling division. Also,
Mhm.
I'm currently in the communities canvassing. I definitely need persons out and about with me. And of course, that takes financial support. I can't bring people out and not be able to refresh and nurture them. So I don't have a dollar figure, to be honest, Mr. President, because I've only been focused
Mhm.
on doing it myself and with the small volunteers I have. My kids, for example, help me with graphics. I have supporters who I won't name, not because they're not worthy of being named, but they enjoy their privacy, who offer their premises for
Mhm.
meeting throughout Eastern Westmoreland and throughout the Middletown Division. And as I expand further into Eastern Westmoreland, I keep meeting more and more persons who are willing to hear the message and willing to lend their support in small ways, but we still need to do a lot more. The division is very large and mountainous, windy roads, so we rent here, petrol, etc. But I don't ask for myself. I ask on behalf of the movement and all the candidates we have out here doing the same thing. So I will just leave it at, please show your support, donate your time and your treasure. It's a minimum of $1,000 for membership, and it gives you a lot to say. You're not only just heard on a social media platform, but you get to come to the membership meetings and the membership congresses and be a part of the process, vote, share your concerns, be privy to reports before they're released to the public, etc. You get to choose the leaders of the movement, the executive of the movement, and so on. So I encourage everybody to just join and donate, and don't be shy and wait for the UIC to accomplish, but be a part of the accomplishment. Now, as it pertains to
Excellent.
me, while earlier on I was a reluctant candidate, as you can remember, Mr. President. Mr. Founder. I found it necessary because I needed to do this for my kids and the other kids in the community. And my father and mother have always taught me to be very family oriented. and be neighborly. I'd like to think that I've been successful at that, and I want to see a change in my community. Our town is a large agricultural town. There's no setup for infrastructure of any kind. We were one of the first free towns in the area set up by the church, and we continue to be a farming community, largely subsistent, with most of the persons, especially young persons, working out of the area, which means under the principles of development, the monies are taking flight. Because when you work, say, in Montego Bay, which is miles away, you now spend your monies in Montego Bay, your lunch, your grocery, your clothing, all that stuff gets bought in Montego Bay. So you're not contributing to the economy in the actual community. And not because you don't want to, but because of the economic circumstances that we face. What I'm trying to do is to show persons that there are creative and alternative ways to contribute to their communities and help the community develop just the same. So, for example, we are overrun with non-native grocers, and I'm saying the local grocers can thrive as well if we support them in their community businesses. The farmers, we're looking how to work with them to move them from a subsistent agricultural program to a more commercial agricultural program with value added goods are owning the entire value added chain so they can now earn more from the agricultural outputs. What I like to tell the farmers when I meet with them is that in other countries, the farmer is not the man that plant the crop and sell it to somebody else. But the farmer is the man that plants the crop, tend to it, reap it, process it, delivers it to the customer, or deliver the end product to the customer, use the byproduct in continued agricultural pursuits. So I want us to recognize that again, that food security will become an issue and the farmer will become an important person, an even more important person. But it won't work if
Well,
we allow the government overbearing and unjust regulations to take form. So we have to
yeah.
create a strong, vibrant agricultural sector that is able to lobby and push back, just like the Dutch did, just like they did in Holland, right? And of course,
Yeah.
for the youth, we definitely want to bring a focus on education, but not just any educational program. In the community, skills training is a definite need, and while there are opportunities, they're not being taken up because the recent history of the community is one of uh, ill-gotten pursuits, and that is changing somewhat, but it still needs to change some more. So we're just showing people that there are alternative means. Right now, the recycling club is doing well. There are a lot of new persons coming on. It's still restricted to a very small geographic area in the Betheltown division and not the wider Eastern Westmoreland. And I'm wondering what the capacity is to take that program outside of the division and into the entire constituency. Meaning, is it sustainable?
So, so Mr. Wright, I mean, just to interject here, I asked you the question, what it takes to win your seat, and I asked because I want to make sure our audience understand what it takes to win a seat. And the reason I'm saying this is politics is normally like entertainment for most people. So they see candidates up to like to see they see the candidate and like to see your advertisement
Ah,
and see you talking and then you're up and down and they say, yeah, you're doing something. He's working. He's working. See, he's going door to door. And you have lots of pictures being taken and nice fanfare and stuff like that. What they don't know is that somebody pays for all of this.
true,
So when you see a PNP candidate or a GLP candidate on the hustings, somebody is paying for that. Mr. Wright, when you try to run for office, there are three things that is required of you: time, talent, and treasure. Time, talent, and treasure. Every day that you are out going door to door is your time
true,
that is gone. Who pays you for your time that is gone? When you're not you so fine, you go to work. I know you work very long hours, so you go to work whatever time you work. Let's say you had a 9 to 5 for argument's sake. Nine to get to work for 9 o'clock, you'd have to leave home by, let's say, 7:30. So you get from 7:30 and you get back home maybe at 6:30 at night or 7 o'clock at night. So from 7:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. at night. That's your working hours. Where do you find time now to go door to door? So Saturday, yeah, okay. So Saturday, what would you have done with your Saturdays? You would have work, have some time with your family, your kids, your wife, things you need to do around the house and recreation. Sunday, same thing, prepare for work the next day and so on. So to be a politician, you have to find time. So when you take the time away from your family, take the time away from your leisure, you're going onto some serious ground now. Your family is going to be challenged, your health is going to be challenged, your finances is going to be challenged. So if persons want you to run for MP, they have to know that somebody is going to have to pick up the cost to supplement your effort that you're going to make. And we have been brainwashed into thinking the way that politicians work is that they just dip into their pockets. So therefore, the only person that must run for office must be very rich people. They must have a business that is up and running and fully, they can just walk away because they have managers, staff, capital, everything in place. So they don't have to worry about their business. And so when they're out on the hosting, campaigning, their finances are okay. Their family is okay. Their health is okay. Now, if you try to have a movement like the UIC where we're trying to elect our people, ordinary Jamaicans now who want to step up and help us to transform, we have to now go look for rich people, Winston. Mr. Wright, we have to go find some rich people only to run because only them would have the time now to go up and down and do all the stuff that I just described. And I don't want us to fool the people. I don't want us to let people believe that this thing about running for office is simple. It's easy. You just get up and go door to door. Just go door to door. Just go meet with everybody. Just have meetings. Just call meetings. Get the young people together. Just get things done. And that is the kind of impression we have to get rid of. We have to let people know that who's going to pay for the gas in your car, Mr. Wright? Who's going to pay for the front end that is going to be gone when you drop in all them potholes to get up into all the areas of Eastern Westmoreland that you're trying to get to? Who's going to cover that cost? When because of your political activities, you lose income for whatever reason, let's say running a business and you're not paying attention to your business because you're doing this, and you lose a contract, you lose this, you lose that. Who picks that up? I tell you who pick it up. If you're a part of the current system and you join one of the other two, you know that you're being bankrolled by some people who said, no worry, man, we're going to help you out. But when you get elected, we own you. You following me?
I'm here. I just have a neck beat.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely correct. But
Sure.
UIC isn't bankrolled by any rich persons or any special interest person. Nobody in the UIC is. And we definitely need that financial support because you're right. When we take time from one pursuit, it's a loss. When we put it in a movement, and I've personally suffered those losses. My vehicle has gotten damaged, and I have to come out of pocket. I have to sacrifice family time. As a matter of fact, my farm hasn't seen me in close to probably 9 months, and I can't find anybody to do that work for me. And even if I do, I have to pay them to do that work.
Of course, yeah.
You understand?
So I just wanted to get that out there, and I want us to have another talk about this. I want we the people to have another talk about it because I think there's a lot of fairy tale out there about politics, a lot of fairy tale ideas, and we think that we're just going to have magical. We'll never have candidates to run for office if that's the approach we take to fixing our country. If we the people don't decide that we're going to own our movement and financially support a group of people to go and fight the battles for us, to go and represent us and do the work for us, like you get a lawyer. If you're in trouble with the law, you don't go out there and just get a lawyer and he just works. You have to go pay him, or you have to rely on the state to give you a state-sponsored lawyer who's been paid by the state and may not work for you properly. So we have to get this understanding fixed. And so as we close out tonight, I want to close out on this. A big thank you, Mr. Wright, for stepping forward, for offering yourself, for sacrificing your time, your talent, because if you're not using your talent here, you could be using it on building your business. Yeah, finding a way out of your 9 to 5, because the time you spend on the UIC, as I know this very well, you could be spending it building your product and pushing and trying to find markets and engaging with potential buyers and stuff. So when you spend 2 hours on a call like this, or 3 hours walking your constituency, or time around the table at the NEC planning a strategy, that is time away from your business, time away from your finances, time away from your family. And remember, you also have to find time for your health. You have to eat properly, you have to drink properly, you have to find time to work out and all that kind. So it's a major sacrifice, yes, Miss Graham. And if we are not serious as a people and say, listen, man, we know we can't trust them two-party there. We know, we've seen it now for 80 years. What we're going to do? We have to put our money where our mouths are. Because if we don't do that, we'll simply be subsisting on wishing and hoping for a fairy tale that will never materialize. And on that note, I want to thank you, Mr. Wright, and all of you on our program for being here tonight, for the seriousness that you have given this, for the fact that you are willing and ready to help. That's what's important. So, quick shout out. Can you all put a score in the chat box? How do you value this program? 100% if it was good or great, and something less if it wasn't so good. We haven't done this for a while, Mr. Wright, where we ask people to score the program. I'm impressed to do that tonight.
True.
So I'll give you the last word, Mr. Wright. While you're speaking, I'm just giving you have literally 60 seconds, because we're 21 minutes over. Everyone put a score in. If you thought this was excellent, give us 100%. If it's less than excellent, give us a number somewhere down. And we look forward to I think we have Mr. Chase Neal coming up next, and then Mr. Barnett after that, and other candidates on the way. So thank you all. Remember, one Jamaica, stronger together. Mr. Wright, your going out message.
Thank you. So I'm representing Eastern Westmoreland as a potential member of parliament candidate. Well, as a member of parliament candidate for the UIC in the next general election. Next local government election, I'll be represented in the Betheltown division. I want to just thank everybody that has stepped up to support me and the movement, and encourage you to share the word, spread the word. Mouth to mouth is just as good as the text, as a WhatsApp message. And of course, the meetings are coming. We have started already at the door to door. Now we're gonna bring that together. Now, where the people that we have met when we have gone door to door, we're now gonna bring them together. We're gonna start talking as groups, answering questions, and just sharing and looking at the way forward. I know we're a small community. I know we're mountainous, and we lack a lot of resources. There hasn't been water in our pipes for close to 10 years. In totality, we have a solution for that. Skills, training, and education for the youth, and of course, community development, because the community has been one road ever since I was a youth, and I'm 46 now. So you can imagine, we need to look at how we can broaden the outlook of the town and broaden the outlook of the community, play into our strength, which farming is one of them. And I look forward to working with the community on that. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wright, and big up to my good friend. Where is he? Mr. Wade. It kind of fell off my screen now, but Wade Noble, I think the name is. He's always here and always supporting. Big up, Mr. Wade Noble. Much appreciated. Big up to all of you who are here supporting the program. Let's get ready to make the UIC Jamaica's next government, to bring us the kind of Jamaica that we all want to see. And we end, as always, with one Jamaica, stronger
together.
All
Good
right.
night,
Everyone, take care. Thanks again, Mr. Wright. All the best.
Thank you, Mr. Founder. It was a pleasure. And it's no sacrifice if I'm doing it for the greater good.